In 3 years, the Vietnamese Forest Protection Department seized over 59,000 of endangered animals. That is about 120,000 kilos of tigers, tiger parts, pangolins, dead, live scales, fishing cats, leopard cats, otters. And if you start looking at that and breaking it down, it's about 110 kilos of endangered wildlife being trafficked, illegally transported around Vietnam each and every single day. That is about twice the size of me on a daily basis. My name is Madelon, and I'm part of an army of professionals that combats the illegal wildlife trade. Did you know that Vietnam is one of the key consumers of rhino horn, and that this consumption is threatening the rhinos in Africa and in Asia? And in my line of work, I often get asked, what does it matter if the rhino goes extinct? Well, let me tell you why. Because we're all connected. We're all connected in the one big ecosystem. The non-living components with the living organisms interact, link, connect with each other, and provide our ecosystem services. And those ecosystem services are essential for us. They provide us food, clean air to breathe, water, shelter, just to name a few. So there's about 8 million species, an estimated, depends a bit on what of calculations you use. And we've only described 1.5 of those at the moment, of which the humans are just one. So I can imagine why people ask me sometimes, well, what does it really matter if species go extinct? What does it matter if the rhino goes extinct? What does it matter if the 1 or 2 goes extinct? Well, we are a big ecosystem and we're all connected, and it's a very intricate balance. Paul Ehrlich, a famous biologist, compared the ecosystem to an airplane. We are in control of this airplane. We, humans, are responsible to keep the airplane up in the air, keep it under control, keep it in balance. All the species in this ecosystem are the rivets, the screw on the plane. They hold this plane very steadily together. They hold the plane balanced. If a species goes extinct, a rivet pops out, a screw comes undone. If there's too many species going extinct, too many rivets and screws will come loose, and the airplane becomes harder to control. Suddenly, a wing falls off and our airplane crashes. Our ecosystem gets so damaged that we can't repair it anymore, and this could have dire consequences for humans. Fortunately, we derive lots of other pleasures from nature as well, not just the ecosystem, and we have a lot of benefits by protecting it. We all love going out to nature. We all love hanging out with our friends, walking to the bush, climbing Mount Francipen. Research even tells us that it's very important for our health and well-being. If you spend an hour in nature walking to the forest, you're less stressed. You have less stress hormones in your body. Your working memory also increases compared to people that spend their time on a busy street corner. So if we want to live healthier, happier, and smarter lives, and if we want to continue to advance as a species, we really need to connect. We really need to protect the ecosystem and all its species within. Because if we lose species, we'll lose the connections. The illegal wildlife trade is one of the biggest threats to species. It ranks amongst 4 of the major crimes in the world. And the illegal wildlife trade, the supply chain, starts with animals being poached, killed, captured, and then trafficked under disguise, moved from hand to the end consumer. Each and every aspect of the supply chain is an illegal activity, making each and everyone involved a criminal, including the consumer. So we try to erase this crime. We try to eliminate this crime. And we do that working with the governments, creating strong laws, effective law enforcement. But to really break this supply chain, we also need to reduce consumer demand. And we try to do that by appealing to people and telling people, creating awareness about the plight of the species. Hey, the tigers are going extinct. Watch out. We try to appeal to people's scientific and analytic minds and telling them rhino horn is just like your fingernails. Can't really have any medicinal purposes. And we try to do this because we think that if people understand what our actions are doing to these species, they will care and they will stop consumption of these species. But unfortunately, this thinking is flawed. Because I know that if I eat lots of fatty fried food, that's not good for me. My doctor tells me I can get increased heart disease risk, diabetes, and lots of other diseases I don't want to die of. And I get fat. But still, I prefer the reward of the Big Mac meal over the healthy salad that gives me long-term benefit. I would like the immediate reward, the immediate benefit. And we know this is the same for people that consume endangered wildlife. We know that the rhino horn consumers do not care about rhinos going extinct in Africa. All they care about is the status that rhino horn brings and the sign of success. Bear users do not care about these bears being kept in these tiny cages with a painful catheter in their belly milking bear bile. They care about if the bear bile they buy on the market is actually real. And mothers of young-born babies do not care about pangolins being hunted to extinction in the forest of Vietnam, neighboring countries, and in Africa, because they believe in the rumor, they care for the rumor that pangolin skills is going to help with their lactation so they can feed their newborn baby better. So if our values, if what we care for drive our actions, how can we then expect, if we give wildlife consumers a message, the fact, the information, something that is far in the distance from them, that hasn't got no direct benefit for them, how can we expect that they stop consuming wildlife? Well, we cannot. We can't expect that of them. So we need to have a different approach. We use behavior change approaches. And we look at what people care about, what they value, and then come up with a behavior change strategy that provides choices and options that have more benefits, more immediate and more direct benefits to these consumers than the consumption of endangered wildlife has. And the behavior change science tells us that we need to have 3 components for that. The first one is knowledge, second one is attitudes, and the third one is practices. And the Vietnamese government tried to change the behavior of the Vietnamese people. There were too many people dying on the roads because they weren't wearing their bike helmets. So the Vietnamese government tried to increase the number of bike helmets being worn by people riding their bikes. So they started doing propaganda. They started creating awareness about, hey, this is the law, wear your bike helmet, is good for the future of Vietnam. Of course, good law-abiding visitors started wearing their bike helmets, or citizens started wearing their bike helmets. But not enough people. The death tolls were still too high. So that's when the Vietnamese government started looking at attitudes. And they said, okay, we need to really figure out what the Vietnamese people really care about. What makes them change their behavior so they start wearing those bike helmets? What do they value? What do they care about? And they found out, by talking to these people, that they care most about their families, that they care most about giving their families the best future, the best care. And their information, their communication started changing. Make sure you don't get killed in a traffic accident. Wear a helmet so you can provide the best future for your children. And this message actually appealed to people. It brought it closer to home, and people started acting differently. They started putting on their helmets. They started a different practice. And especially practices is really important because it gives us a way to evaluate if our behavior change strategies have any effect. So it's very hard to measure knowledge because it's all in our head. It's very hard to measure attitudes because it's all in our head and maybe in our heart. But you can count practices. You can count the number of people wearing their bike helmets on any given day in Saigon. And you can even count if the death numbers, the killed people on the street are going down. But what do you do if the behavior is illegal? So it's very hard to change because it isn't supposed to happen, and it's very hard to evaluate. But we know we can do it. By using the same principles, by using the same behavior principles, we have been able to change the behavior of the most prolific consumer of rhino horn in Vietnam. We have started to find out what they care about. We have found out why they're consuming rhino horn and developed a behavior change strategy that increased their knowledge, changed their values, and then also change their practices. And after 20 months of working with this group of people, we have been able to reduce we have been able to increase the number of people actually recommending to their friends not to consume rhino horn by 18%. And the Vietnamese rhino horn consumers are now less likely to consume rhino horn than they were 2 years ago. I do not want any endangered species to go extinct because of consumption here in Vietnam. So I'm going to do my own behavior change project right here and now, because I want you to join me in this army to fight the illegal wildlife trade and to become a zero tolerance to endangered wildlife consumption nation. And we need to start that with you. So I'm going to show you 4 pictures of very cute and adorable animals. These are all animals that are involved in the trade in Vietnam. Now I'm going to show you what these animals look like when they're involved in the trade for your consumption. And while your knowledge about this horrible side of the wildlife trade and its consumption started increasing, I hope that I've been able to start you making caring and that you start feel a connection with this and want to do something. There is one thing we can do to start people on a behavior change journey, and that is have them take a simple action. So I want to ask you to take a pledge. I want you to all stand up. Please stand up. And I want you to take a pledge with me that we're never ever going to consume rhino horn or any other endangered species. Please put up your right hand. and repeat after me. I will not consume any endangered wildlife. I will not buy any ivory trinkets. I will not wear a tiger tooth around my neck. I will not buy any pangolins or eat them during my family dinners. And I will not gift rhino horn to my boss or my grandparents. Thank you so much for taking this pledge. Thank you so much for joining me in this army that combats the illegal wildlife trade and start integrating a zero tolerance to endangered wildlife consumption here in Vietnam. So now let's keep our airplane flying, let's keep it under control and protect our ecosystems with all our species within. Thank you very much.